Hi, my name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I'm on the National Board of the Theosophical Order of Service. And this morning, it is my pleasure to interview our national president, Barbara Hebert. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you, Anne. It is a pleasure and a joy to be here with you today.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're going to start at the very beginning. Where were you born?
Oh, I was born in South Louisiana in a little town called Covington, which is about 30 miles north of New Orleans.
Right. And where do you live now?
So I go back and forth. As president of the Theosophical Society in America, I live at our national headquarters in Wheaton, Illinois. However, my permanent home is still in Covington, Louisiana. That's where my family is. My home is there. So I travel back and forth between the two.
Right. You've got grandchildren there, right?
I do. I do. I have three grandchildren who are the light of my life, and a great niece and a great nephew who are also, I consider them my grandchildren. So five. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, were you raised in any religion?
So I am a third generation theosophist. My grandmother joined the Theosophical Society in 1935. She raised her children with sort of a theosophical belief system. And I certainly was raised within the theosophical belief system. Because of that, I actually attended almost every church in our small South Louisiana town. There, at that time, quite a few years ago, there were it was predominantly Christian. There were no other religions there, but there were a number of different Christian religious affiliations, and I made it to almost every church in town at some point.
Well, I think so. You can say that your parents and your grandparents' beliefs greatly influenced you, and
Yes.
those are beliefs that I assume that you carry to this day.
I do. Of course, when my grandmother, and particularly my grandmother, because she was primarily our teacher, when she taught us as children, she taught us the concepts in children's language. So as I grew up, I took those concepts, I did my own study, and made it my own. So they're a little bit different than the way my grandmother taught us, but in essence, they are the same.
Well, when you get things from your parents and your grandparents, you're getting the ideas and beliefs. But at some point, these things must have begun to kind of gnaw on your mind and your heart, and you begin your own internal search. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What happened when you internalized these beliefs and began your own genuine search?
Of course. My grandmother had, I think there were 11 grandchildren. I have to count. And of the 11, there are probably four of us who kind of continue with the theosophical beliefs, although everybody is fully aware of them. In my late teens, early 20s, as with many people, I had some obstacles in my path. They were quite difficult. And at that point, I really needed to understand why I was facing this grief and this heartache. And so I went more deeply into the theosophical studies. They helped me understand. I was also at a point in my life where I wasn't sure what to do next. So I decided that I should work for the Theosophical Society for a while and try to figure it out. So at the age of 20, I joined the staff at our national headquarters here in Wheaton, Illinois. And I was on the staff here off and on for about 6 years. Dora Kuntz was the president at that time. And the building was filled with a variety of people, young people, older people, different ethnicities. It was a wonderful place to sort of try out my perspectives and talk with others. And that helped me to really understand my beliefs in more detail. And of course, then as the years continued, as they have, and more obstacles occurred in my life, as they do for all of us, and the opportunity for study and growth continued, those ideas changed over time. They were refined, they were expanded, and they have truly helped me every time I have hit another obstacle.
So being on the path really didn't guarantee that your life was smooth, as
No.
often we believe that that's going to be the case.
I personally think that it makes our journey a little bit more difficult, because I think, again, I don't know, I am a seeker like everyone else, but from my studies, from what I feel in my heart, when we commit to a path of service, which is what, to me, membership in the Theosophical Society is, then we are saying, I want to help humanity, and I want to do it now. And so when we do that, I think the opportunities for growth increase so that we can achieve what we want, which is helping humanity. And opportunities for growth is a nice way to say obstacles, hurdles, difficulties, positive things, but also some very difficult things here in our physical existence. So I guess what I'm saying is, when we say, I want to be on the path of service, we are actually asking for an increase in difficulties, which are, in essence, opportunities to grow.
Well, and so how do you think that these difficulties help us in terms of developing our spiritual nature?
So my perspective is that when we come to an obstacle, a hurdle, we have choices. We can either choose to let that obstacle stop us, and so we end up sort of stewing, so to speak, in our maybe frustration, our grief, our heartache, whatever emotions and thoughts are caused by coming across that hurdle. And we're gonna have those anyway. But we can choose to either stop and sort of sit there in that, or we can say, all right, somehow I am going to find the strength and the courage and the will to get over this hurdle and come out on the other side. And when we do that, we grow in wisdom, I think. And we find that we do have this internal strength and will that can help us move further down the path, and also help us serve others more effectively, because we've also grown in compassion and understanding.
That's beautiful. It makes me think about if we were facing a mountain and we could choose not to climb it because it was too hard, or we can climb over it. And in climbing over it, we develop these muscles and this strength by just merely climbing over it. So that's a beautiful way to look at it.
Frequently, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that frequently the analogy of a mountain is used regarding the spiritual path, as you know, and that the great majority of humanity, we're all climbing the mountain, the summit of which is perfect humanhood. But the bulk of humanity, as they climb the mountain, are taking the path that is a little bit easier, even though it doesn't seem like it, and using the switchbacks so that it's not such a strenuous climb. But for those of us who have committed to this lifetime of service and lifetimes of service, we're actually going straight up the side of the mountain, cutting our own path. And it's so difficult. It can be so difficult and so strenuous. But our goal is to get to the top of the mountain so that then we can reach our hand out, as we're doing actually all along the climb, and saying, come with me. Let's get to the top together. So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. As you speak, I think that we all have that inner call, is that some people respond to that and some people don't. You know,
Yes,
it is too difficult because we are called to be who we are, and we all are called to service because humanity is a team sport. We're in this together.
it
So,
is. And everybody's eventually going to heed the call, whether they do it now or they do it later in this life or in future incarnations. You know, we are unique individuals, yet rooted in that one. And as you say, it is a team sport.
yes, and as you say, it is an evolutionary process that occurs throughout long timelines. And so that is a good reason not to judge other people for where they are, because we may be in our 100th lifetime and they may be in their third, you know.
Judge
Oh,
ourselves harshly because we can be very harsh with ourselves and do a lot of I should haves, I could haves, I would haves, but to be compassionate with ourselves as well and to understand, yes, we're in it for the long haul. So,
yes. Well, what living teachers have influenced you, that people that you had direct contact with?
so many, many of whom have passed now because I'm older. Um, in terms of teachers that have influenced me, of course, my grandmother was the biggest influence. And I still want to grow up to be like my grandmother, who was quite a student and truly did her best to live theosophy. Um, I have had the opportunity to meet any number of theosophists since I've been involved for so many years. I think that a living person who is an influence on me, and I say a person, I'm going to say the staff at our national headquarters. So them combined as one, because every single day they come to work and they work for the benefit of the society, and the society is working for the benefit of all humanity. So I think probably the staff who are here at our national headquarters are one of the greatest inspirations in my life. So
Basically, that's a community.
it's
And
a community.
some people say that community now is the new guru, that it's not one, but it's a collective influence, as you're mentioning.
Yes, yes. And I do think that is the way we're headed, toward community rather than looking to just one person. And in our theosophical teachings, we're encouraged not to just follow what one person says, but to listen to what's going on inside of ourselves, to our own inner voice.
Well, we've been speaking about service, and service is the cornerstone of theosophy. Could you say a little bit more about service, what that means, and maybe this benefits of service?
Oh, absolutely. So I think there are many kinds of service. And just like there are many individuals in the world, and each of us has to listen, I think, to our own inner voice to see where we are called to serve. Sometimes people serve by working in their local food bank or helping to build houses for people who don't have homes. Sometimes people are called to do meditation and contemplation to change the mental field of consciousness for all humanity. Sometimes people are called to work towards social justice and to protest and to, there's just so many ways. And I think each of us has to find that way for ourselves. Throughout my life, I have in retrospect, realized that service has always been a major part of of my career as an educator and then as a counselor and a therapist. It's always been about serving others. And I think that what we gain, although we don't serve for what we're going to get,
Right.
but we still get, so to speak.
Right.
What a joy to be able to know that we make a difference. We make a difference in the world. And although we don't have to be thanked for it, we don't have to receive anything for it, we know that we are here to serve others in whatever way we can. And that in and of itself is what benefits us and our heart, knowing that we have done the best that we can to serve those that we can reach. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it does. And I'm just wondering, is there a difference between giving and serving? I mean, it seems like they're very interrelated.
So,
Giving.
you know, I think that there is. So, but we're down now to parsing words, which may or may not be useful. Words are the way we communicate. They're all that we have in order to communicate. On the other hand, they can trip us up tremendously because words mean different things to different people. When I think of give, I think of someone who has more and someone who has less. And that it's almost a superiority sort of thing or a power thing. And I don't think anybody is less. I think we're all on the same path. I think we're all focused on different things. And so giving doesn't feel very comfortable to me. And again, that's just my interpretation of the words and the language. When we're in service to another person or to the earth, to the animals, to whomever, when we're in service, we see it as an equal partnership and that we're helping one another, that we all come from the same source. And while I may have gotten over a big rock, I'm holding my hand out to someone and saying, here, so that they can also get over that big rock. But it's not because I'm better or I'm giving them something. It's that we're on the path together. We are, it's trying to think of the words. It's an I-thou relationship where we're really the same as opposed to an I versus you, or I don't know. I think I'm stumbling over words here, but that's my perspective about language. Even helping, I think, implies an imbalance of power, so to speak. So serving is the word that works best for me. And I think it is useful for all of us to really think about what the words mean in what they imply at their deepest level, so that we are working from a place of equality rather than inequity. So
That is a great distinction. So maybe that we serve from compassion and we give from sympathy, which is a looking down on people when we're sympathy, serve from empathy, not sympathy. And thank you.
absolutely.
A great distinction. I had never made that distinction and it just kind of popped in my mind. So I really do appreciate that. In the past, can you think of any TOS projects that you have been involved in? And I'm just saying this maybe to give other people, other lodges, ideas of things to do. Can you think of any specific projects that you've been involved in?
Yes. So these actually have been, because these jump out to me first and foremost. These have been projects that we have done here at the national headquarters through at our summer national convention before the pandemic, when we had a longer convention that was all in person. We would have an afternoon of service. One year the project was to, we got book bags, essentially, and we got a number of different items to put into the book bags, and we decorated them and put notes, positive affirmations inside of the book bags. And these book bags were taken to the local child welfare office. It's called different things in different states, but the Department of Children and Family Services, to be given to children who are in the care of the state, in the care of the Department of Children and Family Services. Because a lot of times when those children are taken from their home and placed in foster care, they essentially have a garbage bag to put their items in and their possessions. The implications of that are pretty obvious. And so to have their own book bag where they can put their possessions, that's something for them. That really touched my heart. Another project that we did was we collected clothing for people who were homeless. That's not the appropriate term now, but for people who were living in shelters. And we included socks, a lot of socks, personal items, that sort of thing. Because when someone does not have a home in which to live, and especially if there are times when they're living on the streets, apparently socks are extraordinarily important. And those personal items are also very important because they're expensive. And people who are living in shelters or who are living on the streets don't have the money to purchase personal items. Those are just a couple of things. And those are things that groups can do on their own. It doesn't have to be a huge project. It can be a small one. Even individuals can do that. You know, a couple of backpacks a month, or a couple of personal care items with socks and a month. That's a wonderful thing to do. And it can be done anonymously so that we know that we're providing things that we can provide that maybe others can't. So I hope that's helpful.
Well, it does. And I think that you did bring up a good point, and that is that we want to examine our motivation when we serve, because we don't want to be giving to get.
Exactly. Because that negates everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an easy one to do when we feel less than. We try to build ourselves up through means such as giving to others.
Absolutely.
And that may be an old paradigm. It is a popular paradigm, but it is an old and useless paradigm compared to the I-thou paradigm that you're speaking of.
Yes.
What aspects of theosophy do you think have most influenced or guided your life?
I think the concepts of reincarnation and karma. You know, I think they're the two concepts that have gotten me over some of the hurdles, some of the heartbreak, recognizing that I don't have to hold on to anger or to grudges or find revenge, which is those are human feelings and emotions when we've been hurt, because everything that I've encountered is a lesson for me. That's what karma has taught me, that it's a lesson, it's an opportunity for me to grow. And that others who I have perceived have hurt me in some way, or I allowed to hurt me, they will have their own opportunities for growth. It's not for me. And reincarnation fits into that, of course, because, as I grow in each incarnation, through the karma, through the obstacles, then I have the opportunity to serve others. That's sort of a very brief explanation of those two concepts that have helped me the most, I think.
So revenge really doesn't have a place in this game.
No, not really. It's tempting at times, it's tempting. We're humans. We're working through these things. And when we're hurt, we kind of want to hurt the person who has hurt us. But that really does not fit well into the spiritual life. Our goal is to move beyond that place and to recognize that the other person will have their opportunity to learn and grow as well.
And when we hurt others, we learn that we hurt ourselves as well.
Thank you for saying that. Absolutely. If we're all one, everything that happens to us, everything that happens to another person, happens to us as well. So, when we see the horrors that are going on in our world today, and we kind of distance ourselves from it, which once again is human, we have to realize that we are those people who are experiencing those horrific things. It's not just someone at a distance. It is us, because we're all one.
I see people that get if you'll let me bring this point up, I see people that get very upset and angry and attached to people that are angry and upset. Especially country leaders of our countries. People get very attached to being upset about them, really hating them, and on the other side, maybe even idolizing them. Do you have any comments about how that fits into this whole situation of karma?
I do, from my own perspective, and it more than karma, it's more about thought power. We, as theosophists, as students of the ageless wisdom, we recognize that thoughts have power. Thoughts are things. And that thoughts are energy and they're vibrations. So if we are angry, and I don't like to use the word hate. My grandmother, when we were little, my cousins and siblings and we'd say, "Oh, I hate that." She would say, "Hate is a very strong word. Do you really hate it?" She really made us think through that. But if I'm angry, so I'm vibrating, my thoughts, my emotions are vibrating at a certain frequency, and it's going to attract others that are also vibrating at that same frequency. So it only adds to those vibrations in the mental and emotional fields of consciousness, which is absolutely not helping humanity. And so part of our role, part of my job as a seeker on this path, is to recognize what's going on in these unseen, so to speak, worlds, and to not vibrate at that frequency, but vibrate at a frequency of compassion and love and understanding, and recognizing that each individual just is where they are. But what I want to do is to vibrate at a frequency of compassion so that I am joining with others or other energy at that level and sending that out into the mental and emotional fields of consciousness, because that helps humanity. And that's just a little tiny thing that we can do multiple times a day as we go through our daily lives.
And you mean multiple times a day? You mean to send light and energy, or what action would we be taking, or thought would we be taking multiple times a day?
So I guess I'm thinking, if I'm in my car and I'm driving down the road and someone cuts me off, I can react with annoyance or fear because they almost caused an accident, or anger, like, who do you think you are, Betty? When I get there, when I start thinking those things, again, my vibration is here, and that's what I'm sending out into the world, as opposed to safe travels. I hope you get where you need to be safely. So that sends out a totally different vibration. I think through our regular days, we frequently are confronted with things that may annoy us or frustrate us or even make us happy. And so, again, when we join with those thoughts of happiness and love, that's what's going out into the world. So we each have to look at ourselves, I think. Such a difficult thing to do. And make the decision. And it takes a while, I think, not that I'm there. Please don't think that I'm saying that I am, because I'm not. It's constant self-observation to look at my reaction so that I don't react, but that I act in a way that is helpful to humanity as a whole. Even though it doesn't feel like it, because it's just me not getting mad at someone who broke ahead of me in the grocery line or something, or had 20 items when they're only supposed to have 15. It's lost my train of thought. Sorry, but it's something that we all can do on a daily basis, but looking at ourselves and what's going on inside of us.
Those are excellent. I love that when you say we all have times during the day that we are going to be challenged, to be miffed, to be anxious, to be scared, that they're going to occur naturally throughout the day to all of us. So we have these little mini challenges, and then there are the big challenges as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to change the direction a little bit. And unfortunately, there are not lodges in every city. Everyone does not have the chance to go to a lodge, but there are a lot of places that we do have lodges where people can attend. Have you had any particular lodge that you have been able to participate in? And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that experience.
Of course. In the little town where I was born and grew up and still have my permanent home, there is a Theosophical Lodge there, and has been since 1935. And so for many years we met face to face. When and we met in people's homes. I'm not sure that that's probably a good thing to do anymore, but that's what we did and had done since 1935. And I think it creates a community. It creates a sense of, even when we went online during the pandemic, and I have to admit, because of my role as national president, I haven't been as active in the local group as I would like to have been. But that will change in the years to come, in the months and years to come. But I think it creates a sense of community. A lot of times we feel like we're alone with these ideas, especially when we start to study more deeply. And so having others to talk to and to get their perspectives on things, to have open-minded discussions that are courteous and respectful, even if we don't agree, is so important. And I will say that the pandemic was a blessing in some respects, because as things closed down, the national headquarters moved very rapidly to put as many things as possible online. Not everybody likes to be online. I understand that. But what it has done is made it possible for people who are not near a lodge or a study center, who don't have others in their local area to sort of create a community with, like-minded others in their community, to get online multiple times a week if they so choose, to be able to participate, to talk with others, to really have that courteous and respectful, open-minded discussion about a variety of different ideas, so that the ageless wisdom is more available now to seekers than it has ever been. And I talk about the Theosophical Society in America, because that's what I know the most about. But I do know that sections in countries across the world are also moving more and more online. So I could actually get on the computer and attend a meeting in the Philippines or in England, or if I spoke French, in France. So we can, or in Central South America, Australia. It just is all across the world. So we're really coming together as a worldwide, a global theosophical community, and it's incredible. So I think I jumped off your question onto something else. So I apologize.
Absolutely. That's what we want to do. We want to spread the question out so it can be large enough to hold many answers that were never spoken. You've really given some quite amazing answers, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your duties as the president of the Theosophical Society, and also a little bit about why does the president travel a lot? I think you're invited to a lot of countries. What do you do when you go there? Do you speak? I mean, what's the whole nature of this presidency office that you've held so well?
Thank you. That's very kind. It is such an interesting job. And I have to say, I have grown personally and learned so much over these last 6 years. The president is the chief administrative officer, essentially, for the Theosophical Society in this country. So my responsibilities involve administrative tasks. We have a staff of 40 staff members, about 20 of whom are full-time and 20 are part-time. So the whole administrative component, making sure that the buildings are all maintained, that the grounds are maintained, that the bills are paid. Not that I do that, but that I work with the staff who do that. The housekeeping staff, who does a phenomenal job in maintaining the cleanliness and of the building and the rooms when people come to stay. So there's that whole administrative component. I work very closely with the departments in terms of outreach. Again, I don't do that work, but I work closely with the departments that do, because from my perspective, the role of the Theosophical Society in general is to share the ageless wisdom in as many ways as we possibly can. And so I sit on our program committee here at our national headquarters. I do have a presidential veto. So when we're talking about whether to do a program or not, if I feel it's really outside of our purview, then I can veto it. But that is so rare. There's a team of theosophists and committed staff members who talk over the programs. How will this share what we want to have shared? How will this help other people? That sort of thing. And how is it aligned with our theosophical teachings? I also, as the president of the Theosophical Society in America, so I am what is referred to globally as the general secretary of the Theosophical Society in America. President is a term we use within the country. Globally, it's general secretary. And there are sections of the Theosophical Society in about 70 countries across the world. And the person in charge of each of those sections is considered the general secretary. Twice a year, there is a meeting of the general council as it is called. And that is for the general secretaries and a few elected people who come together with the international president, international secretary, international treasurer to meet and talk about the work of the Theosophical Society globally.
Is that in person?
Yes, usually, well, during the pandemic, we were online. But yes, it's actually moving back to more of a hybrid format at this point. So in December, just before the international convention at our international headquarters in Adyar, which is located in Chennai, India, there's a general council meeting, and that is required by our international bylaws. Tim Boyd, who is our international president, has also, over the last years, scheduled another general council meeting in June of each year, so that the general council is meeting at least twice a year. And that meeting has been held, and I assume will continue to be so, at the International Theosophical Center, which is in Naarden in the Netherlands. There's the International Theosophical Center. It's a gorgeous place. And so it is a center, obviously, where the general secretaries go. We meet in person. There's discussion, financial reports, discussion about what's going on across the world, and whatever else the president has on the agenda. So the general council meets twice a year. I have had the good fortune, the blessing of being invited to speak in several other countries across the world. And it is always incredible to be with theosophists in other countries, so that even though there may be some cultural differences because we were raised in different countries, different cultures, we come together as brothers and sisters. And that feeling of meeting new friends who are really old friends just continues, whether it's at our own TSA national summer national convention, or whether it's attending the national convention in Belgium or France. It's just amazing and a joy, and that is a real privilege of the work that I've done. So I'm grateful for it.
Right. Well, that traveling is quite exhausting. So you get a little dose of excitement, enthusiasm, and also that travel lag that we get.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
And some I can do online. Several months ago, I spoke for to the Theosophical Society in England, and I did that via Zoom. So I had the opportunity to be with our brothers and sisters in England without having the flight and the jet lag.
Right. So that is something that we have gotten from the pandemic, because I assume that did not happen before the pandemic.
No, it did not.
Yeah. Well, we always had ideas to do that. We were always thinking about doing that. I know I was in the Houston Lodge at that point, and we just never followed through on it. But then it became that we had to follow through on it.
Yes.
Is there any way that you think that people should approach the theosophical principles when we're sharing them with others, or should we do this by the law of attraction and just have people ask us, or should we tell people about them and invite them to the lodge? What do you think about that whole area of communication about theosophy?
That's a really good question. And I don't know that I have a specific answer for it. I think we need to, I say that and then I just jump into an answer. I think we need to approach people where they are. So some people are going to be very open to it, and they're going to say, I noticed you didn't get all freaked out when that happened. How did you not get freaked out? That person's ready to hear what kept us in a state of equanimity at a difficult time. Other people may not be so ready. And that's okay, because there's so many paths. Krishnamurti said, truth is a pathless land. And it doesn't matter how people get to the summit of the mountain, as long as they're moving that way. And as we know, because of the law of progressive development, they're all headed that way. We are all headed that way. So I think that we meet people where they are. That's the most important thing. We don't push our beliefs on other people. We share if they seem interested. We don't necessarily hide our beliefs, but we don't push them. This is a struggle for me. I was raised in the Deep South in the, well, that tells my age, but, in the 60s and 70s, and you didn't talk about things like vegetarianism or reincarnation or karma or anything like that. You talked about where you went to church and which revival you were going to the next weekend. So it's a little bit, I've struggled as an adult sometimes to be able to share my beliefs, wondering how they would be accepted. And I've found that people are very open to hearing, because I use the word I don't say you should, whatever. I say, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that I'm going to have other opportunities to do better. I'm going to try to do better now, but I know that I have other opportunities to continue to try to do better. This is a personal story. In my career as a counselor educator, I worked with people who were accruing hours. They were doing counseling to accrue hours to become licensed. And I supervised a number of people in that way. And one of the ladies that I supervised, who is a wonderful, wonderful woman, but self-identifies as extremely Christian, and extremely Christian. Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to say it. Do you know we worked together for 3 years, and she never had any inkling that I was anything other than very much in her same belief system, because I used her language. A lot of the counseling, from my perspective, is very theosophical. And so we talked, but I used her language so that she was able to not only improve her counseling, but I think was moving along this path to a truly a perspective of universal brotherhood and sisterhood. So
there's a lyric from a song that says, "Love in any language, spoken from the heart, brings us all together, never apart."
I love that.
You were speaking the love language.
Yes. How beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Yeah. And so just turning a little bit away from that question into our last question, basically, have there been any theosophical books or any other spiritual books that you have been guideposts for you in your own spiritual journey? And Absolutely. If so, what are they?
Yeah, of course. I think At the Feet of the Master is one. It is one of those books that no matter how many times one reads it, no matter how many times I read it, I always find something different, something deeper, some understanding that I didn't have before. And I think it talks about living a theosophical life, which is what this is all about. Theory and abstract concepts are wonderful, and they have their own place in this journey, but we have to put it into action. We have to live it. So that book, I think, absolutely does it for me. The other one is The Voice of the Silence, and by Mabel Collins. And it is a book to be read, in my opinion, with the intuition, because it is so deep. but yet if we read it just from a peripheral surface level, it can be confusing. But I think taking a few passages and contemplating them has been so helpful to me. So those are two books, and they're both little small books, which are wonderful and very helpful. So those jump out to me.
And that's really great to recommend something that's not overwhelming for people, because when we start on the path, I think picking up The Secret Doctrine or maybe some of Leadbeater's books, like The Science of the Sacrament, they would be hard books to start with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you so much today for speaking with us. And I think you've explained a lot of things that I didn't know and that other people are very interested in. And I wonder if there's any kind of closing thought that you might want to give us, or maybe just a goodbye.
I am so grateful to be a theosophist. I have a theosophical family, many of whom I haven't met yet, and look forward to meeting in this lifetime, excuse me, or in another lifetime. It has provided me, excuse me.
We shouldn't do this in the morning. we have the stuff here.
It has provided me with a framework for living and for surviving those difficult times that come to all of us. So I am grateful to have the opportunity to talk with you, Anne, and to be here to share some of my thoughts. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barbara.